Welcome to the Story Wheel. Welcome to summer solstice. And this is from, obviously, the Southern Hemisphere, being as how the Northern Hemisphere will be celebrating midwinter. And good on them, I say, being as how I am actually a lover of winter and find summer quite tiring. Anyway, today's story is a sun story. It is a retelling of the story of Phaethon, Apollo, and the Sun Chariot. And yeah, I've taken a few liberties for our Southern Hemisphere solstice group. And it's okay. Oral story tradition, things change. Just take the bits you enjoy and discard the bits you don't. Okay, here we go. The heat of the summer. How we love it. How we enjoy the early dawns and the late sunsets and the nearness of sun as it shines lovingly upon us, encouraging the newness of spring as it transforms everything into the abundance that summer is known for. But how did this seasonal transformation come about? And who's responsible for the ritual of sunrise and the sunset? Well, according to the ancient Greeks, via translations of Ovid, it was Phoebus Apollo, the great sun god. Apollo, who each day just before daybreak would stroll to his stables and leap into the sun chariot, which had been carefully harnessed by some lesser beings in the stables, and he would ride out through the gates of dawn to bring the days into being. And in the early days, his careful navigation created the passage of the sun across the sky, meaning light and dark, day and night, could be relied upon to be the same day upon day upon day by gods and mortals alike, unchanging in its length and intensity. What a gracious god this Apollo was, to take on the important responsibility with so much dedication. A god who, like his father, was one of the Olympians, strict to law, and as such he felt that he could carry out his responsibilities and then take certain privileges with whomever and whenever he saw fit. And in this way, Apollo, well, he ended up with a number of children scattered around the region, Greece. The precise amount would be quite hard to ascertain, but a quick Google search lists at least 52 of the more famous ones. What a busy boy. Now, Apollo's offspring in our tale today is Phaethon. Poor Phaethon. Well, he was destined to be raised by his oceanid mother, Clymene, and his mortal stepfather, King Merops, who loved him like a son. Wealthy Merops, who was steadfast and kind and conscientious and dedicated to his people. So, needless to say, this is the last we'll hear of him. Now, occasionally, Merops would travel abroad, and bored and listless, Clymene would find herself thinking back to her exciting youth and her liaisons with the magnificent god Apollo. And one day, feeling somewhat resentful of her boring husband, who was away on yet another money-making trip, oh, what a rat, well, she found herself regaling her son of tales from her past, and in this way, it became known to Phaethon that his actual father was someone worth bragging about. And amongst his peers, this wasn't really unusual. The gods were renowned for their extramural activities, and there were plenty of youngsters that Phaethon knew who had one or other parent who was a god. One of whom was this especially obnoxious brat called Epiphus, whose father was the great Zeus himself, the god of the gods. So, for Apollo to be able to join this group, this esteemed group, well, it was quite a special. And one day, he was sick of listening to my father Zeus this, my father Zeus that. Oh, Epiphus would go on and on. Yeah, Dad, he gave me my own mini thunderbolt the other day, and he said I was one of his faves. So yeah, I guess I'll be having a riot with that over the weekend. What will you be doing, Phaethon? Well, Phaethon, he was rather sick of this. Thunderbolt, he said. Wow, yeah, cool. But my father's treating me this weekend to something much more exciting, and I can't really tell you what it is right now, but it is going to be amazing. Epaphras laughed. Whatever, you twerp. What's old Merops got planned? A weekend fishing trip on his boat, I suppose. Well, enough was enough. Not Merops. That old fool's not my real father. My real father is Apollo. You know Apollo, the sun god? Epaphras, well, he just stared. And then he roared with laughter. Oh, you sad little man. Jealous, are we? Well, just because you wish you had royal blood in your veins, well, it doesn't mean you do. You're a liar. And boiling with a venomous desire to put Epaphras in his place, Phaethon blurted out the first words that came into his mouth. Actually, you jerk. Dad, Apollo, well, he's been teaching me to drive his chariot. You know, the sun chariot? The one that even Zeus isn't allowed to touch. Zeus, your father? While you're playing with your pathetic little thunderbolt this weekend, I'll be in the driver's seat behind the fire stallions. So take that. Bullshit, Epaphras sneered. You're lying. You're definitely lying. But he didn't look quite so sure of himself. And Phaethon, noticing this, couldn't help but push his point just a bit. Midday, Sunday, be on the roof of your house and look up. I'll be there all right. You'll see me. I'll be the one holding the reins. And with that, he stalked off, leaving Epaphras open-mouthed and absolutely astonished. Tears were streaking down Phaeton's face as he stalked home. And entering his room, he crashed and bashed around and started hurling clothes into his leather satchel, all the while cursing himself. What had he done? What was he going to do now? He had to escape this lie of his, that's for sure. Damn that arrogant son of a... Oh, careful, Phaeton. You can curse yourself, but you better not curse a son of Zeus. And so when his mother Clymene heard his crying and entered his room, she was met with a mess of tears and a boy beside himself. A boy definitely in need of a plan. So this is what she said to him. Go to your father. Go to Apollo and say your mother Clymene sent you. Say that she has waited long enough for him to introduce himself to you, and the time has come for him to acknowledge the child he abandoned before you were even born. Use your wit and your courage to face him, and who knows, maybe he will help you with a plan, and you will be able to wipe the self-satisfied smile of that little brat Epaphras' face. Walk east and east and east, my son. Keep walking until you can walk no longer, and you will reach the Sun Palace, and there you will meet your father Apollo. At night, he sits upon his throne, and although it is night, take care to shield yourself from his radiance, because none shines so brightly as Phoebus Apollo. And so, he's my own sun god. This is Orlando, not Apollo. And so he did what he was told. In order to turn his lie into a truth, he walked and walked and walked as far east as anyone can walk until he reached the tremendous yet terrifying gates of the Sun Palace. He arrived at dusk, and scuttling through the busy palace, sneaking past the sentries who were fussing about preparing for the return of the sun god. He went and dodged past guards and the hustle and bustle of the couriers. Courtiers awaiting the return of the god. And he secreted himself in the empty throne room. He went quietly behind a pillar to wait. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. And finally, exhausted from his long journey, he fell asleep, only to be jolted awake by a brilliant luminosity which seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once, and it seemed to enter into his very bones and to expose him down to his very thoughts. You! Who are you, boy? How are you here? Speak before I crisp you to a bone. Now, Phaethon, he didn't come all this way to be incinerated by the father he'd never met. He was half god, after all. And he did have half the gall and half the arrogance of a god, and thus he answered his father with a degree of certainty that maybe he shouldn't have. It is I, Phaethon, son of Clymene, daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. Clymene, my mother, who you knew some 18 years ago, and who carried me and raised me without your help. We feel it is time for you to meet your son, me, Phaethon, and acknowledge me. What do you say to that, Father Apollo? And so it seems that Phaethon was not only capable of tremendous lies, he was also capable of tremendous bravado, which was quite handy in the circumstances. So Apollo, what did he do? He actually let out a raucous bellow of laughter. Well, is that so, young buck? Yes, let me look at you. Yes, I do see a little something of myself about your eyes and the colour and the lustre of your hair. And yes, I do remember the delightful Clymene. How is she? And why now? Why make yourself known now? If you are indeed my child, I do not for a moment believe that this visit is as simple as the need for me to, as you say, acknowledge you. Well, Phaethon, encouraged by the way things were going, and emboldened by Apollo's smiling eyes and his seemingly pleasant demeanour, he found himself daring to stretch the truth just a little to his newly found father. Why, father, I have a great desire for your love. I've always felt something missing, and that something missing in my heart is you, it's your love, and I wish you to show me that you do not just acknowledge me, but that you might love me just a little. And then I can travel a great distance back home, certain in the knowledge that I have a little tiny place in your great shining heart. Ugh, it's rather nauseating, wasn't it? But somewhat touched and taken aback, well, Apollo, he felt moved to indulge the son who stood before him with such apparent naivety and a simple craving. Why, my son, yes, well, of course I love you. Yes, I love you. How can I show you this? Ask anything of me, and I will do it to prove my love. And I swear this as an unbreakable oath upon the river Styx. Ask away, my boy, and it shall be done. Ooh, wow, this was the moment. This was it. And Phaethon took that moment with both hands. My father, I would have you prove your love to me by handing me the reins of the sun chariot tomorrow, so that I shall drive the sun and bring it across the sky, bringing day and night to the world. One day only, father. It's not too much to ask. Oh dear, Apollo. What are you going to do now? Well, Apollo, he was dumbfounded. What? No, you can't do that. Ask for something else. Ask for anything else and I'll do it. But Phaethon, he looked deep into Apollo's eyes, and without a trace of humour, he said, you swore. On the river Styx, you swore, father, an unbreakable oath, and you know that cannot be broken. Ooh, and so it was the next day, with a burning fury, brought an unbreakable oath upon him, that Apollo led his son to the stables, and as much as he knew this shouldn't be happening, that it was impossible, it was also beyond any god to break an oath made upon the Styx. Well, the 4 stallions, they reared and they flamed in anger. They were astounded and scared by the stranger walking alongside their master, this no one who smelled of fear and dread. And what was their master thinking? Now he was lifting this quivering halfling into the chariot, seating him, tying their reins around this thing's waist because his little pitiful hands were too small to grasp the reins. And what was their master whispering? Things into the ears of this boy? Instructions? Guidance? Snatches of urgent conversation passed between Apollo and the boy. The middle path. Take the middle path. Yes, father. Yes, father. The horses know what to do. Do not pull on the reins. Yes, father. Stick to the middle path. Do not fly too high. Do not fly too low. Fire and burning and ice and freezing. Yes, father. Do not pull on the reins. Do not scream. Do not call their names. Yes, father. And then a glimpse of light out of the dark night. And the goddess Eos, she responsible for opening the gates of dawn, fled past, confused and frightened at this unexpected turn of events. I hope you know what you're doing, Apollo. One last moment, one last chance. You may change your mind, my boy. This from Apollo, said even as he knew that Phaethon would never back down. Such was his pride. So, go, my horses, and be your new master safely for a single day. That's all you need to do for me. And Apollo stood back as the chariot lunged forward, setting the new day in motion with the pitifully small shape of his son clinging to the seat, up and up and up on a path so well worn that no one below would suspect anything different from any other day. And the horses, despite their confusion, stuck to the path. The reins tightened around Phaeton's waist and squeezed the breath out of him, but he remembered his father's instructions, not to pull on them, not to scream, despite the fear consuming him. And in fact, it actually must be said that things did start off quite smoothly. The day was being created and he, Phaeton, was doing it. And so he started to relax. And in fact, he started to look around and down, far below. He could see towns and villages. In fact, what was this? He could see his own village. He could even see his own home. He could see that shit Epaphras's home. Epaphras. And all the excitement and fear, he'd forgotten about Epaphras. But now the bile rose at the thought and the scathing comments and the sneering disbelief. He won't believe me, thought Phaeton. I'll do this, and that rotten son of Zeus, he won't even believe me. Well, I'll show him. I'll just take the reins off and I'll drive the chariot down over his house so that when the sun goes so close, he'll look up and you'll see me. me. He'll see me laughing down at him. Son of Apollo, demigod. Demigod? Oh dear. And this is exactly what that stupid vain boy did. He untied the reins from his waist and screaming out at the weight and the heat of them as they flayed his hands, the horses, terrified, lunged, pulling down the sun with its destructive power ever closer to the earth, careening off course and burning villages, forests, all land annihilated. And down below, Phaeton could see his village in flames, and he could hear the screams of burning people and smell smoke and burning flesh. And on, one village after the next, engulfed in an inferno. And so summoning every aspect of his god half, he grabbed the reins and praying to Apollo, he pulled back, yanking the horses upwards and up and up and up until the chariot was brushing the top of the sky. And all the earth was plunged into freezing darkness. The oceans froze in an instant, all life within them ceasing. No, no, no! Poseidon, god of the ocean, brother of Zeus, let out a bellow that shook the whole cosmos. Zeus, you ass! What in the name of Hades is going on? Get the hell off your throne and sort this out. Now, Zeus, well, he already knew what was going on. Being the ruler of all the gods, it was rather his job to know what was going on at all times. And so, somewhat casually, considering the annihilation that was happening down on Earth, well, he prepared a thunderbolt. And he spotted the swerving chariot and he aimed. And naturally, being Zeus, he hit his mark. And that mark was the screaming, terrified Phaethon. And upon being struck, well, his body was flung from the chariot and it plummeted to earth. The fiery stallions, sensing the interloper was gone, well, they did what all good horses do eventually, and they returned home via the allotted path. And the day ended much the same as any other, except for there being one less half-human, half-god boy, and a whole load of annihilation and freezing and burning of the earth. Well, Phaeton's charred remains landed in the river Eridanus. No one mourned him. No one was left in his village to do so. And yet, someone actually did care. From that day forth, Apollo, in memory of his foolish, though brave son, who maybe he wished he'd known better, well, Apollo took pains to alter the course of his chariot, so that for half the year he would move a little closer to the roof of the sky, taking the sun further away from the earth, causing chill winds and snow and frost and ice, but never the freezing darkness that had caused such destruction. And likewise, for the other half of the year, steering his path ever closer to the earth, bringing warmth and then heat, and then sometimes searing days of drought, but never so close that the whole earth burned as poor Phaeton had witnessed on his fateful ride. And so it continues today. The seasons and the solstices, that point where the chariot turns. And Apollo honours his son in this way. And by the river Eridanus, there is a plaque that reads, "Here lies Phaeton, Apollo's charioteer. Greatly did he fall, though more greatly did he dare." And so I ask that you take time to pity Phaeton and thank Apollo and enjoy your summer solstice or your winter solstice. The end.